ring knows once you go down. You must be crazy if you think that I'ma slow down. Don't wanna hear it talking shit, fuck the drama. Keep it coming, I'ma send you to your mama. Mr. Whip, 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 get the guns out. Dropping bodies in the place till the sun's out. Can't fuck with me, so don't even try. Cause when the bullets fly, I'm the last one to die. If you think that I'ma slow down, don't wanna hear it talking shit, fuck the drama. You keep it coming, I'ma send you to your mama. Mr. Whip, quick clip, get the guns out. Dropping bodies into place till the sun's out. Can't fuck with me, so don't even try. Cause when the bullets fly, I'm the last one to die. Pulling up black windows once you go down. You must be crazy if you think that I'ma slow down. Don't wanna hear it talking shit, fuck the drama. You keep it coming, I'ma send you to your mama. Mr. Whip, quick clip, get the guns out. Dropping bodies into place till the sun's out. Can't fuck with me, so don't even try. Cause when the bullets fly, I'm the last one to die.
What's going on, y'all, man? Welcome back to the Sound Waves Media YouTube channel. I am your boy, Nuke Waves. Listen, I know it's been a while since y'all have seen me. It's been a while, man, but I'm back in these streets. I am back outside. I'm back on YouTube, okay? It's been a lot going on, but, you know, we're not even going to talk about that, right? What we are going to talk about is the very first episode of the ATL Hurricane Podcast. So this is going to be a sports podcast. I'm going to be covering everything from the University of Miami to, the University of Miami football and basketball programs, everything Miami Heat, everything, what else? Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to be covering all that stuff as every week. I'm going to have my game week and post game analysis, man, culture talk, rants, and off season moves. I'm going to be talking about everything. I won't really get too much into like the recruiting and stuff like that. Like, I'll touch, recruits, here and there, but I'm not doing a deep dive in, the recruiting of, the programs and stuff like that. So without further ado, listen, I'd like to welcome all y'all, man. Welcome. Kind of nervous first time, doing a podcast, but we're gonna work through all these kinks. It's gonna get better and better every episode. You know, if you like, sports, if you like music, this is the channel that you need to subscribe to. Make sure you hit that like button. Leave a comment, man. Let me know what I can improve on. Give me some tips, some pointers. If you got any questions, anything, man, just leave it in the comments. Only positive though. We're not doing no negativity. Only positive vibes. Okay. So first thing I want to touch on is my personal connection to the U. All right. So I am born and raised in Miami, Florida. Last of a dying breed, 80s babies, just caught the tail end of the 80s, right? So I'm really a 90s baby for real, millennial. So, man, growing up in Miami, if you know, if you're from Florida, it's a football state, especially South Florida. Like all we do is live and breathe football. My mom was a huge sports fan. It's the reason I love sports. She used to always, go to the Miami Dolphins games, even though I'm not a Dolphin fan. Y'all see, I'm not gonna be covering the Dolphins. They suck. But man, just always being around people that love football. My mom, used to work at the Mecca. If you're from the crib, you know what the Mecca is, Travis Power Stadium. So I grew up, at the stadium, going to Central games, Miami Central, Miami Northwestern, Norland, all that stuff. I damn near grew up. I literally grew up, at Travis Power. I was one of them kids who used to be running around the little grass over there by the locker rooms. I was one of them kids back in the day, throughout the 90s and stuff. That was me. But back to the U. Man, I just remember going to the Orange Bowl, man. Down there in Overtown. Going to Soul Bowl games. Yeah, if you from the crib, Soul Bowl used to be that thing back in the day. Miami Jackson, Miami Northwestern, boy, that was like the premier high school game in the 90s, early 2000s. Like Soul Bowl was where you needed to be at the Orange Bowl, okay? But also, man, my earliest memories of, University of Miami, like late 90s, with greats like Edgerrin James, those guys like that. Santana Moss, one of my favorite UN players, of course, Sean Taylor. Yeah, man, that was like, I just used to remember, the smell of, just like popcorn and peanuts and, the French fries they used to give you in a cup. Man, listen, some good old chicken tenders and fries. That's all I needed, be probably up there in like the nosebleeds or something. Maybe not like the top, but like under under the top. Y'all know how the stadium used to be. It was a horseshoe, and you had like the little over the nosebleeds, which was all the way at the top, and then we used to always sit like underneath. So even like, if the weather was bad or something, we'd always be protected, So, man, I just used to love going to them games, having Phil Collins play for the pregame warm-ups, man. I could feel it, like those were like, they used to just give you chills, man. I used to love them, watching boys come out the helmet and the smoke. I just grew up, man. I just grew up. I bleed orange and green. So, I'm not an insider. I don't have connections, personal connections to the University of Miami. As far as, like people that's on the team or staff, stuff like that, man. I'm just a diehard fan. I just want to get my opinion, my perspective of different things, So, that's pretty much, my background as a UM fan. I follow a lot of the UM podcasts, man. You heard Alex Dono, Kane's Insight, Wide Right podcast. I watch them all, man. I watch all y'all, man. So we about to get into this, man. On this episode, man, we just gonna just cover, like I say, just the state of program, Mario's, identity for the program and culture. A quick little overview of the first 3 seasons of the Mario Cristobal era. This is season 4. It's the start of season 4. So, I'm not gonna necessarily say it's make or break, but I have a good feeling about the team, about the squad this year. We're gonna talk about what the future looks like, and we also gonna talk about the Kane culture itself. Where the culture came from, where it started from, and just some of the worries or the optimism that some of the fans have, including myself. So we're gonna jump right into it, man. So, first on the slate, let's talk about the program, how it's been, since Mario's been here, what he's aiming for, what he's trying to bring, to Miami, bring back to Miami, man. Because I mean, this past 20 plus years, man, it's been pretty rough. It's been pretty rough as a UM fan. Okay, not even gonna lie to you. But what Mario is really trying to emphasize on the squad, man, really is like size, toughness, discipline, and really restoring the pride in the logo. The logo, the U, that green and orange logo that be on the side of the helmets is recognizable everywhere. When people see it, they know what it means. Honestly, I feel like he's doing a really good job of, reinstilling all of those things: size, toughness. Still got to work on the discipline a little bit. We be kind of high in penalties and bonehead plays, but I think that also kind of contributed from just the type of players that was already here when Mario got here. In 2022, it was rough, man. 2022 was rough. We ended the year 5-7. We had some terrible losses, man, to Middle Tennessee State. I know y'all remember that. Middle Tennessee State. What? Man. We had losses to Duke, Carolina, and the hated Florida State Seminoles. They whooped our behind in 2022, man. We didn't reach a bowl game in 2022, but it's okay, because even with that being said, 2022, we had the number 7 recruiting class in the nation. Number 7 after a 5-7 season. So that already shows you and lets you know, Mario was already on a recruiting trail. Another thing, that Mario wants to really emphasize is, just bringing the standard and just making sure the culture is back where it needs to be, right? So, I think a lot of people think that coaches are the one that, that carry the culture, in programs. I believe that, and I heard this from, what's my man name? Dang, I can't think of his name. From Fox. If y'all see this, y'all might drop his name in the comments. But I heard him once say, that standard is brought in by the head coach, right? And the coaching staff. But the culture is built and set by the top and the best players in the program, and they hold everybody else accountable. That's what creates a culture, because the players are an extension of the coaches on the field. So they have to be able to, like I say, hold everybody accountable, hold themselves accountable. And that's really how you create a culture that everybody thinks like the coach. Everybody has the same temperament as the coach. And I really, really believe that Mario is instilling that in a lot of the guys, even the transfers that come in, they take on, his attitude, his calmness, the way they speak, it's like when you hear Cristobal talk and then you hear the players talk, it's like they kind of is always in unison and sync. And another thing I know that, Mario is trying to bring back is, we want to be consistent ACC contenders and playoff participants, man. We just missed the playoffs last year, unfortunately, after having the number one pick in Cam Ward, man, and had the number one offense in the nation, we fell short. But it's okay, man. We got another crack at it, and we're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to it. All right. So year 2. All right, I'm done talking about all that. All right. So year 2, 2023, we make a slight improvement. We from 2022, we was 5-7, 23, boom, 7-6. Still not, the Miami standard, but it's better. The team's looking better. We're not losing. We're not getting blown out anymore. We're in it, and against tough teams. We actually had 2 really big wins in 23. I think it was maybe like the second game of the season. We beat Texas A&M, steamrolled them, and we also beat Clemson, which we've really had troubles with Clemson since we've been in the ACC, especially the last decade or so. Clemson has really been putting a mud hole in this for real. But still, there's still improvements to be made from that 23 season, man. We had a terrible loss to Georgia Tech, even though it was not a fumble. I hear a lot of people, talk about, oh, he should have took a knee. Mario should have just took a knee. Like, honestly, from my perspective, right? I don't think Mario did anything wrong. You're being as safe as you can running the ball with a trusted, player, and and it's crazy that they reviewed the play and they still said that the man fumbled the ball when it was clear that his elbow was down and the ball was still in his grasp. He still had the ball under control. That should have never been called a fumble, even after the review. That call should have been overturned, in my opinion. I know a lot of people gonna say we should have took a knee, but the man was down, But anyways, it shows on the record as a loss. It was a terrible loss. It was a bad loss. We had that game won. We also had a bad loss to UNC again. They ran all over us, honestly. We turned the ball over a lot. That was TVD's last year here. Had a lot of turnovers. And we also lost to NC State that year, which was another bad loss. We actually made a bowl game, but lost to Rutgers, which was an ugly sight, But all in all, it was an improvement. It was a 2-win improvement from 22, Mario's first year. And then, during that offseason, we had the number 4 recruiting class. So we're stacking top 10 classes back to back. And that's something that, the Miami Hurricanes have not seen, in recent memory. Like, we weren't getting top 10 classes with Manny Diaz. We weren't getting top 10 classes with any of the coaching staffs before. I feel like the last coaching staff that we was really having good recruiting classes, but it just wasn't translating to on the field success still was Randy Shannon, with Ja'Cory Harris and them boys, Sean Spence. Like, we had really good recruiting classes even with Randy Shannon. But, the administration really wasn't putting a lot into the football program, and we didn't have a lot of resources, but, that's neither here nor there. We're not going to make excuses, So year 3, last year, 2024. Okay, 2024. Listen, we get Cam Ward in, the off season from the transfer portal. When we got Cam Ward, I had heard of Cam Ward. I never really watched him play, because he was, from the Pac-12, which is now dissolved, the Pac-2 now, I guess. But I had heard of his name. I had, seen some highlights of him before, because I'm really an avid college football fan. I'll pretty much watch any college football game as long as the U not playing. So sometimes you'll be up late and you'll catch some of them West Coast games. I definitely thought he was talented. When we first got him, definitely went on a little rabbit hole when we did end up signing him, because he was originally going to go to the NFL. He was testing the waters, in the draft. I guess it came back. He was like a 5th or 6th round projection. So he wanted to come back and try to up his stock for the NFL. So he ends up coming to the U. It's some skepticism behind that, because he was at a program that they weren't really all that good. Had some decent players. They didn't get any bowl wins. He was from the FCS. Originally started at Incarnate Word, but won the Jerry Rice Award, which is the top freshman in the FCS. So the guy had talent coming in. He had talent. He just needed a bigger platform, a bigger stage to showcase that talent. And boy, did he not. Did he not let that opportunity go to waste. He blew up on the scene, honestly. Clearly, he went from a 5th, 6th round, projected pick to being the number 1 pick. Like, that is insane. He broke all types of records, for the U, man, passing records. He either tied or broke the all-time, touchdown mark between FCS and FBS. So I think he got the record. I don't know if he tied it or broke it, but I think he got the record in a bowl game. But yeah, man, 2024, we make a big jump, in the way that we playing. We're beating, our offense was like a well-oiled machine, man. Getting Shannon Dawson in 2023, that was his first year as offensive coordinator. And yeah, man, like Cam came in and it was on and popping, man. First game of the season, man, against Florida, hated UF Gators. Put a mud hole in them, 41-17. We also beat steamroll Florida State. And we barely got past Louisville, but that was a really good game. Shootout, back and forth. Again, man. Again, we had some bad losses. I think that's one thing that Mario definitely has to get better at, which is we have to win the games that we're supposed to win. We can't keep losing games to these programs or these teams that aren't on our level. Again, we lose to Georgia Tech. And it was so crazy, man, because, as I was saying, me growing up as a UM fan, man, we used to stomp a mud hole in Georgia Tech every year. Stomp a mud hole in these dudes, man. And past few years, man, Georgia Tech has had our number. Unfortunately, we don't play them this year. I would love for them to play Georgia Tech up here in Atlanta. I live in Atlanta now, so I would have loved for them to have come up here. I would have definitely went to that game. But yeah, 2024, we lose to Georgia Tech. Even though it was a competitive game, again, we had a couple turnovers. And then we lost to Syracuse last game of the season. We was up 21-0, and we still found a way to lose that game. It was no ACC championship appearance, which we were right there. We was right there. And we lost in the bowl game, Pop-Tart Bowl, to Iowa State. Another shootout, another game we should have won. Cam, decided to opt out. of the second half of that bowl game, which, to some people's disdain, or, they didn't really like it. They called him a quitter on the team. I don't look at it as that. I mean, I think he was looking out for, his future, didn't want to get hurt. I understand. We still should have won the game. Even without Cam out there, we still should have won the game. The big downfall of last year, even though, we had a decent first few games of the season, man, with the defense. But man, we had a few injuries. Ruben Bain goes down in the Florida game. I think during the first drive he goes down. Damari Brown, talented corner that we have, that's fully back healthy this year. I'm expecting big things. He gets hurt in that Florida game. He's out for pretty much almost the whole season. I think he comes back at the end of the season, like for the Syracuse game. I think that was his first game back. He only played 2 games last year, so I hope he was able to use a redshirt, unless he used it in 23. I'm not sure, but the defense just let us down. I'm not even gonna lie. Like I said, the first few games of the season, the D-line, they was getting after it. It was getting sacks. Had some more transfers come in. Simeon Barrow, who actually was an all-ACC player. He was a good player, but all in all, the secondary, we was weak in the secondary. Jaden Harris took some terrible angles, man. Was constantly getting beat, missing tackles. Mish Powell came in from Washington, over on the West Coast, again, the Pac-12, after he was just in the national championship game with Washington the year before. He had a decent season, but he wasn't the top-notch talent that we're used to at the U. He didn't really have it there in the speed department. He was a smart player. He was in the right places a lot, but didn't always convert that into stops or tackles. He definitely led this team in interceptions. I think he had like 5 or 6 INTs. But again, just the secondary, we didn't have any depth, man. Once Damari went down, we had a couple guys go down. The one bright spot about the secondary last year was OJ Frederick, true freshman, out of St. Thomas Aquinas, out there in Broward County. He was the lone bright spot in the secondary last year, man. Honestly, he locked it down, man. Had a tumultuous game against Syracuse, but he's a true freshman. It was cool, but he was a true freshman All-American, last year. So I think, expecting big things from him as well this year. So after this season, like I said, we lost in the bowl, Pop-Tarts Bowl, to Iowa State, the number 14 recruiting class. No, it's not a top 10 recruiting class, but from what I'm hearing from, spring and fall camps, man, the guys that we got in the 24 recruiting class, those guys are really those guys. Okay? Those guys are those guys. All right. So what is the future looking like for the program? I feel like the future is high. Honestly, the future is looking very bright. We're consistently getting high level recruiting classes. We're stockpiling blue chips. Like back in the days, man, we're getting top class after top class. That number 7 recruiting class from 22, they're now true juniors. This year, 25, they're true juniors. CC Malinoa, those guys, Pancake Honcho, even though he hasn't gotten a lot of burn, he's still here. I think he was injured, a lot last year. But those guys are really stepping up. Ruben Bain, another one, true junior. I believe him and CC are definitely going to the league this year. Going to be high draft picks. And I feel like that's when you really know the U is back. When we start sending guys in the first, second round, that's when you know the U is back. All right. I feel like, even though the last 2 years, we got Carson Beck this year, which I haven't touched on yet. I'm really going to touch more on that, in the next episode, as I do more of a deeper dive into last year's schedule and this upcoming year's schedule. We have a stable quarterback play, and we have high level coaching staff, man. Like, I really feel like, now that we've made some adjustments and some upgrades on the defensive coaching staff, I really think it's going to be, on the up and up as far as, getting these guys developed, unlike we were doing in past years before Mario got here. And I feel like we have the pieces to finally consistently contend for ACC titles and potentially deep playoff runs, So that is, kind of that overview of the first three, state of the program, so to say. Now let's get into some history, the history of the U, where we get our swagger back, the past greats, man, the Big East dominance that we had before coming to the ACC, the ACC struggles, and the national narratives that are around the program now. And what are fans saying about Mario Cristobal in the program, So, where did the swagger come from? The swagger. Listen, Miami was really hated back in the day. I mean, it is what it is. They don't like to see Miami be good. We are some very small private school in Coral Gables, Miami, Florida. And Miami was a struggling program, from its conception until like 1979 when Howard Schnellenberger was hired. The great Howard Schnellenberger, may he rest in peace. South Florida has always produced top football talent. And, Schnellenberger, he vowed that, and he called it the state of Miami, which is, Miami and South Florida, all those surrounding areas. He did not want the best talent to leave the South, because that's what was happening back then. All the best talent was going to Oklahoma and Texas, Ohio State, Michigan, like all the best talent from South Florida was going out of state, or, up to UF, Florida State, stuff like that. So we win our first national championship in '84. Coach Schnellenberger led us to beat the number 1 ranked Nebraska Cornhuskers in the Orange Bowl, our first national championship in '84. Check, in '84. That was our first national championship. We would go on to win 2 more national championships in the '80s. So from '84 to '89, which is 6 seasons, we won 3 national championships. Okay, 3. So we kind of really truly dominated the '80s for real. Like we really got put on the map in the '80s. Schnellenberger got the first. Jimmy Johnson got the one in '87, and Dick, I forgot his name. Coach won in '89 and '91. Damn, I can't believe I forgot his name. I'm having a brain fart. Put it in the comments. But back then, we was playing with speed, attitude, confidence, man, violent intentions, and flash, which created that villain mentality that people did not like. People did not like the way that the U used to not only beat people, man, but embarrass. We used to embarrass programs back in the '80s and early '90s, even in the early 2000s. Like, we wouldn't just beat you. We would, like I was saying earlier, stump a mud hole in you. Like, it would be non-existent, And Jimmy Johnson is really the one that embraced, the attitude and, the flash. He let the guys, have fun, really, man. They would celebrate whenever a big play was made, touchdowns. I remember from the 30 for 30, documentary series. They used to be like, if you ain't want us to dance, don't let us score. If you ain't want us to run a score up, don't let us score. And I really think we need to get back to that type of mentality. And I think Mario can bring that back. Even though Mario's kind of, conservative guy, I don't think he'd really run a score up unless, he's going up against a coach or, a program that probably is talking some smack. Then he'd probably run it up. But I don't really see that in Mario's character to run it up. Like, he didn't really do that at Oregon, where he won 2 Pac-12 championships. He didn't do it at FIU where he won a conference championship. But I think getting back to that mentality of just playing with confidence and attitude and violent intentions, playing with speed, we really getting back to that. And I think that's when we start really winning those games we're supposed to win, like I was saying earlier, beat the teams that we're supposed to beat, and be very competitive against the top-notch teams, then that's when you know the U is back. All right. Some of the past greats, man, that I remember, like Ken Dorsey, Clinton Portis who was one of my favorite running backs, in the early 2000s. EJ, Edgerrin James, Frank Gore, Willis McGahee, man, Central legend, Willis McGahee. Frank Gore. I think both of them. Didn't both of them go to Central? I don't think Frank Gore went to Central. I know Willis McGahee went to Central. Yeah, I don't think Frank Gore went to Central. Never mind that. From receivers like Michael Irvin, Santana Moss, like I say, was one of my favorites. Andre Johnson, Reggie Wayne. Tight ends, man, my favorite all-time tight end from the U, Bubba Franks. Big number 88, Bubba Franks. Some of y'all might remember, Bubba was a big dude, man, but, he used to do his thing, man. Jeremy Shockey, Kellen Winslow II, Greg Olson, Brian McKinney, Aaron Winston, Warren Sapp, Vince Wilfork, Russell Maryland, Calais Campbell, who I think is still in the NFL, Ray Lewis, Jonathan Vilma, Dan Morgan. Dan Morgan's one of my favorite linebackers, along with Sean Spence and John Beeson. He was another one of my favorite linebackers from U. Of course Ray Lewis, but Ray was, a little bit before my time. I don't really remember watching Ray Lewis at the U, just, hearing about it and seeing videos. One of my favorite safeties, two of my favorite safeties, Ed Reed, Sean Taylor, Benny and Al Blaze, the Blaze brothers. Al Blaze was there with Ed Reed, and Antrell were one of my favorite corners from U history. A lot of those guys, man, are in the Hall of Fame, and even like guys like Jim Kelly in the Hall of Fame. Vinny Testaverde, I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame, but he won a Heisman Trophy at the U. I think he's probably our only Heisman Trophy winner. Otis Anderson is in the Hall of Fame, I believe. Michael Irvin's in the Hall of Fame. Andre Johnson, if he's not in the Hall of Fame yet, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Reggie Wayne, Hall of Fame. Edgerrin James, Hall of Fame. Frank Gore, Hall of Fame. Brian McKinney's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame if he's not already. Warren Sapp, Hall of Fame. Vince Wilfork, Hall of Fame. Calais Campbell, he might make it to the Hall of Fame. I don't know. Ray Lewis, Hall of Fame. Ed Reed, Hall of Fame. Sean Taylor, he was tragically lost, Hall of Fame. So it's a lot of greats that wore this orange and green, okay? Guys, they did not like us back in the day. I'm trying to tell you, a lot of them guys was on the same team. Big East dominance, man. Listen, the Big East. Listen to this stat. We was in the Big East Conference for 13 years, from 1991 to 2003. Before 91, we were independent, like how Notre Dame is now. We were independent. So from 91 to 2003, we won 9 conference championships. 9 conference championships in 13 years. We won 5 straight conference championships from 99 to 03. 5 straight. 03 was the last year we was in the Big East. We went to the ACC in 04. We won 2 national championships while we was in the AC in 91 and 01. Overall conference record, we were 66-13 in the Big East. But, we still weren't. I'm not gonna say we weren't getting the recognition or the respect, from other teams or coaches or the national media, because we were beating a lot of the better teams. We were winning national championships, so but we still wanted to be like, okay, y'all want to say we're this or that. We wanted to go to a tougher conference, which back then was the ACC. We came with Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, FSU was already in the ACC, one of our hated rivals. So we joined the ACC in 2004. So this is our 21st year in the ACC. We were projected to, create a super conference, like with Virginia Tech, and Florida State, man. Because they had just played in the national championship a few years before, we came over to the ACC. Mike Vick was in the national championship, played against Florida State. I think that was 01 or 2001, something like that. So in the 20 years since we joined the conference, man, we've only appeared in one conference championship game, and that was in 2017. The last time we had 10 wins before last year. And we have yet to win a conference championship in 20 seasons that we've been in the ACC. That is unacceptable. That has to change, and I believe it's going to change under Mario Cristobal. The swagger from the 80s and the 90s had done faded, and administration, like I said earlier, failed to fully support the football program, after facing some NCAA, sanctions and suspensions, and we lost some scholarships, post Butch Davis and the Larry Coker eras. But we would still consistently get top 20 recruiting classes, but we were failing to develop these guys into really good players on a college level. These guys would transfer out, go to other programs, and become really good. So, there was a disconnect with recruiting top guys, but not developing them into top guys in the college football. So in the likes of that, we would fall behind the likes of Clemson, which, Clemson has really come along over the last 10, 15 years. Florida State's won a national championship within those last 10, 15 years. And even Virginia Tech, man, as front runners in the conference. Excuse me. So remember earlier I told you, Big East record, we were 66-13. Excuse me. 66-13 in the Big East Conference. That was a conference record. Since we've been in the ACC, we are 92-82. Unacceptable. 92-82. Still, above 500, but barely above 500. Okay, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. We have to do better. I definitely think I'm gonna get into projections and all that next episode. We're not even gonna talk about that right now. So the national narratives, man, the national narratives that a lot of the media was mentioning before. I would even say this season, because I think the narrative is kind of changing a little bit, because they're saying the consistency, right? But the national narratives we were constant underachievers. Check. And we were. Can we finish strong under Cristobal? The month of November has really been a pain in our backside. Like, we cannot finish in the month of November. I don't know what it is, but that needs to change this year. Can we finally return to national prominence? That's a big question, that a lot of, talking heads have in the national spotlight. But I think we have, even without winning, a conference championship or being in a college football playoff, we are constantly being talked about. So I do believe we are returning back to national prominence. Can Coach Cristobal be consistent with on-field coaching decisions? That's something that's been lacking in the previous years. Definitely in 23, like I say, with the Georgia Tech, um, debacle with us losing that game. So it's been some questionable on-field coaching decisions from Cristobal, yes, but I believe that the upgrade in the coaching staff will help out with that. You know, it's a lot. Being a head coach, it's a lot of big decisions and things that can go wrong, good or bad. That falls on the head coach, which that's what you sign up for, being the head man. And is the resurgence real? Is the U back? Again, like I said earlier about, the U swagger, you'll know that we're back when we are consistently producing high level draft picks and beating these teams that we're supposed to beat. Beating the Georgia Techs, beating the NC States, beating the Louisvilles. We have to beat these guys, man. We cannot let these mediocre programs beat us. We have to pound these people. All right. And I believe all these questions can really be answered this season, in 2025. I really believe that these questions can be answered. So those are the national narratives. Now to the optimism and, maybe some concerns that, some of the fans have, me, that I've had in the past. Like I say, my mom's a huge UM fan. She's on the concern side, I have conversations about sports all the time with my mom. And in her words, she's over Cristobal until he shows that, he can produce on the field, which is fair, but I don't think, she looks at the whole picture of, we really were in bad shape in 22. He had to reframe and reshape the entire program, from the players to the mindset to just the want. Like in 22, guys was quitting. The teams was quitting, but those weren't Mario's guys. 23, some of the Mario's guys were true freshmen, didn't really have a big voice in the locker room. 24, again, another improvement. Those guys were a little older. They were sophomores. They did have some say in the locker room. Now 25, those guys are juniors now. And, I feel like they're really taking over as being leaders on the team. And just about everybody on the squad now are Mario's guys, so now is no more excuses of, oh, those aren't Mario's guys. Now it's all Mario's guys, okay? So some of the optimism that I feel like the fans, that I see, from message boards and just comments on other videos and other podcasts is, the restored honor and pride in the program. A lot, like I say, the U is a very small program that, has a very big fan base nationally. Like there's people that don't live in Miami that are UM fans, that probably never lived in Miami that are UM fans, just because of the prominence and, everything that was going on, like I say, in the 80s. We really developed a lot of fans. Like I say, I never went to the University of Miami. I used to play ball with some of my boys in the intramural gyms over there. Was good, y'all boys. And like I say, man, just restore the honor and pride in the program. I honestly feel like the U might be one of the only programs where you have so many fans throughout the nation of people that's probably never been to a UM game. It's not a bunch of alumni that is, it's like, oh yeah, UM fans. Some of these people are not alumni. I'll say majority of the national UM fans are not alumni. Never took a class at the U, nothing. We just, we just got it like that, I guess. Another growing optimism, from the fans. The coaching staff is finally developing players like they should be developed from Ruben Bain, CC Malnoa, OJ Federic. These guys are being developed now. They're being talked about as future first round picks, second round picks, high level draft picks, and double digit winning seasons again. Last year 24 was the first 10-win season since 2017 when Mark Richt was here. That's unacceptable. 8 years should not go in between winning 10 games in a season. So we need to stack double digit wins. That needs to be, again, a standard is double digit wins, 10 plus every year. Nothing less than 10, no more. Not while Mario's here. So some of the concerns, again, just like the national narratives, is Mario's improvement with on-field coaching decisions. Man, we still need to see the proof of the pudding. We need to see it on the field. Finishing the season strong. Like I said, the month of November, just like this season, like we have 8 home games, which is crazy. But we have some tough road games in November, and those are cold months. And, historically, we don't do well in the cold, whether it's the Miami Hurricanes or the Miami Dolphins. We don't do well in the cold. We're a little too tropical down here, so, that has to change, and that's a mindset, and that's a culture thing, which I think Mario's working on. ACC championship game appearances and wins. We need to start stacking appearances. Like I said, we've only been in the championship game one time in 2017. We need to make it back. This year, we need to make, at minimum, we need to make the ACC championship game. I'm not even going to say we need to win, but we definitely need to make it there. If we don't make it to the ACC championship game this year, it's a failure, honestly. And postseason runs, deep postseason runs, that's another concern, because historically over the last 15, 20 years, we have not done well in the postseason. We lose the bowl games that we do make it to. The guys, in the past weren't taking pride in those bowl games, sitting out the games, the entire games, not even playing in the games. So we have to change that. And I think, a lot of this can be shown on the field this year, and I think it will be shown on the field. So guys, man, that's really going to do it for this episode of ATL Hurricane. Coming up on the next episode, man, we're going to really take a deep dive into season 4 of Mario Cristobal era. The 2024 season review. We're going to do a deep dive. Some of the offseason additions and departures, man, whether that's players and coaching staffs, from recruits to transfers. And then we're going to do a 2025 season preview. That's going to come up on the very next episode. Again, man, make sure you guys follow all the social media platforms. Right now, it's just Instagram really that I'm on. I mean, I have, an X account / Twitter account, but I don't really be on there, but I'm gonna start getting on there more. So you guys can definitely follow all the social media handles. You can follow my personal page at Nuke Waves. That's NUUQ.WAVZ. All the links will be in the description, so you guys can go copy and paste or click. Sound Waves Media on Instagram, and like I say, X. Make sure you guys run up the followers on that, and make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel, man. Like, share, subscribe, leave your comments, leave your concerns, man. Everything you need is going to be right here on this channel. Again, man, I'm coming back with the my music reactions. I'm going to be dropping some dope mixes, man. I'm also a DJ, so I'm going to be dropping some dope mixes. And so make sure you guys stay tuned. It's going to be a lot of content drop this week. As I say, this is game week. I'm getting kind of a late start, but again, it's been a lot going on. But trying to get it out in a timely fashion now. Like I say, next episode, man, will be dropping not too long after this. So appreciate you guys' time. If you made it to the end of this video, make sure you throw up them views in the comments, man. Appreciate y'all. Peace.